Hi friends, and welcome back to my channel. So it is getting close to the end of the year, and as such, I would love to do the end of the year book tag. I haven't done this in a couple of years, and it is always super fun. This is a tag that was created, I believe, by Ariel Bissett. I've done the tag before, but I think only once. I don't know if tags are that big of a thing on YouTube anymore, but I do like this one and thought it would be fun to do a tag. So without further ado, let's get into it. Question number one is, are there any books that you started this year that you have not finished? I would say mostly no to this question, but there have been a few like anthologies that I've started in like 2024 or 2023, but never actually finished. So I'm not really counting them as stuff I started this year and did not finish because they're just kind of, you know, some of those things that get read throughout a course of a couple of years, such as like a poetry anthology or stuff like that, where it's kind of like, do I finish this in a year? Unrealistic. But the one book, this is kind of funny, but this one book I did start this year and have not finished yet, and it is Total Cat Mojo by Jackson Galaxy. This is kind of funny because Jackson Galaxy was on My Cat from Hell, and he's a cat behavioralist. And in my quest to be the best cat mom I can possibly be, I picked this up so that I could get some more information about cat behavior. But there's so much to be learned from this, and cat behavior is just such a fascinating subject because everybody focuses on like dog behavior, and there are a lot of misconceptions that cats don't get separation anxiety or don't feel attached to their humans or all these types of things, and it's all not true. So this has been really interesting to kind of learn more about the animals that I have lived with my whole life. I haven't been reading this cover to cover. I've been picking out different chapters and sections that I want to learn about, so I don't have a like percentage finish with this. I don't actually know. I've just been reading bits as I go. And if you hear running around, that is my cat in the background having zoomies right now, so just don't mind her. But yeah, this is the book that I started and have not finished that I would like to finish this year. Question number two, are there any autumnal books to transition into the end of the year? So this one is kind of just a run over from October that I didn't get to, and it is sort of a spooky book, and that is Somebody is Walking on Your Grave by Mariana Enriquez. This is not a spooky book in that it's directly horror fiction, but it is nonfiction about Enriquez traveling around looking at different cemeteries. So it is nonfiction, and it kind of works because nonfiction November is kind of a thing, and also because it is a little bit spooky still, especially because it's coming from a spooky author. So this is one that came out this year. It came out in September, I think, and it had been on my radar for a little while, so I definitely want to complete this in the year and be able to talk about it with everyone. So yeah, this is a kind of transitionary book, which it fits into that nonfiction November theme, but then also into the spooky theme. Okay, so the third question is there still a new release that you're expecting in 2025? I think if I had done this tag in early October, I would have had quite a few things to say, but at this point, you know, it's kind of dwindling now that it's November and December, and there's not a lot of like interesting like lit fic or horror things that I'm personally interested in that I've seen. Basically, October was a huge publishing month. There was so much good stuff that came out. I have so much stuff that came out this year that I haven't gotten to. So I'm not really looking ahead to the end of the year. But of course, there are many books that are coming out in 2026 that I'm excited about. Some of which are Cruelty Free by Caroline Glenn, which is coming out in February. I Love You Don't Die by Jade Song, which is coming out in March. And I also have an arc of this one, which is coming out next year. This is Hexes of the Deadwood Forest. And I'm not sure how to pronounce this author's name, but this is an arc, and it's coming out in April of next year. So those are a few of the books that I'm excited about for 2026. I know that's not quite the prompt, but that's the best I have because there's not a whole lot left in November and December. Question number 4, what are 3 books you want to read by the end of the year? So besides Somebody is Walking on Your Grave, I do have a couple books that I feel like I really do need to get to, one of which is Peach Pit, and this is edited by Molly Llewellyn and Crystal Buckley, and this is a compilation of short stories by different female authors who write weird woman kind of fiction. And oh boy, I have had this since the beginning of the year. It has been out for a while, and I still have not gotten to it, and I've put it on TBR after TBR, and this time I am definitely going to read it. I don't know if it's gonna be this month or December, but damn it, I'm gonna have this read by the end of 2025. I don't wanna bring this into another year of my TBR. So this one is number one priority. Then I have Sympathy Tower Tokyo by Ri Quidan. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. And apparently this is set in future Japan, and it says here the practice of radical sympathy towards criminals has been normalized. It's very futuristic. It has to do with AI and social issues. So this one was gifted to me by Summit Books, and because it was gifted, I feel more of a pull to read it, though I'm not under any obligation to review it or anything like that, but they did send this to me and I would really like to give it a read. It is also so pretty, and you know, I wasn't quite sure how to feel about it going in when they asked me about it, but it is a translated book by a woman, and at this point I'm kind of feeling really interested in like the futuristic criticizing AI type of content. I think that that is interesting. So I go kind of through phases with that type of stuff. Sometimes I'm like, I really don't want to read anything futuristic. I really don't want to read about robots. I don't want to read about AI. There's too much going on with that in life right now. And then other times I'm like, ooh, that does sound interesting. So this is one that I feel like I need to read the most in the coming 2 months. And then finally, we have My Clavicle and Other Massive Misalignments by Marta Sands. This is categorized as autofiction, so I'm kind of partially including it as a nonfiction November thing, but also just I was really excited about this when it came out, and I love books about chronic pain, and the format of this looks really cool, and yeah, it just seems like something that I would really be interested in, considering that it's about pain, and it's translated as well, so it is a perfect combination of lots of things that I'm interested in and love when it comes to reading. So this is my third book that I would like to read before the end of the year. Question number 5, is there a book that you still think will shock you and become your favorite book of 2025? I have read several books this year that have become all-time favorites. So much so that when I'm trying to like pick out my favorite book of every month, there are months that have like 2 or 3 all-time favorites that it becomes impossible to choose. My favorite so far that I have read this year is Body Friend by Catherine Braben, and this has won out completely on my like little bracket that I'm working on. So this is a book about chronic pain, but it's a book about a woman who has these 2 friends who represent different aspects of how she feels about her pain or how she tackles her pain or doesn't. It is extremely poignant, it is very relatable, and it is one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. It feels deeply personal to me, but also just an incredible read for anybody who hasn't learned a lot about chronic pain. So this one is my absolute favorite, but this one is also a close second. This is Tender as the Flesh by Agustina Bastarrica. These 2 I've written like lengthy Substack posts on, and I can kind of tell when I have that much to say about a book, I know that it is one of my favorite books. So realistically, I don't know that anything that I'm gonna read towards the end of the year is going to beat out Body Friend. It is such a fantastic and poignant read. I've also read some incredible cannibal girl fiction this year that has become, you know, favorites of mine, and I just don't know if any of those are going to become an all-time favorite. The only one that I feel like has potential is The Hunger We Pass Down by Jen Sukfong Lee. This is a more recent release if I end up getting to it this year. It is a weird woman book about a mother and a daughter. It's like a generational curse thing in her family, and it sounds really, really interesting and an interesting examination of mothers and daughters, which is a topic that I'm really interested in literature right now. So this could end up being a favorite. I'm really, really excited about this one. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, I don't know if it is going to beat out Body Friend. I read that mid-year and nothing has truly compared since then. And the final question, question number 6, is have you started making reading plans for 2026? So generally, I would say yes. I think that the books that I talked about that are coming out early in 2026 are part of my reading plan. I really want to read those shortly after they come out. Obviously, that means buying new hardcovers, but that is just life. Those are some of the books that I'm most excited about, especially the book by Jade Song. But besides the new releases, a couple of the goals that I've kind of jotted down include reading more nonfiction. I feel like I did okay at that so far this year. I've read you know, somewhat a decent amount of nonfiction. But if you look at kind of my like pie chart of every month that I've, you know, recorded how many books I've read or whether they were fiction or nonfiction, I still feel like so many of them are fiction. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I do really like a good nonfiction, especially if it has to do with a topic or theme that is really near and dear to me. So I have some books about chronic pain, books about religious deconstruction, books about cults, things like that, that I am interested in reading at some point. I would like to read some more of my nonfiction, the stuff that I have on my shelf, as well as some of the things that have been haunting my Goodreads for a while. So yes, reading more nonfiction is something that I would really like to do. I also would like to read more based on mood and less on TBR. And this is kind of funny to say as somebody who would categorize themselves as a mood reader, because I do really like reading books that are based on my mood, but I'm also a planner, and I also love to plan ahead about what content I'm making and have all of these books read to create that content. So I give myself assignments, and I feel that it's very important to stick to them, and I get in this guilt and shame cycle if I don't complete the projects that I said I was going to, or that I just don't complete the books that I said I was going to, even if they're not for a project. I have some commitments and things between book club and buddy reads, and those kind of add up in terms of how many books I can read for myself in a month versus for projects or for buddy reads or book club. So I would really like to stop planning ahead so intensely next year. And I've definitely stopped doing it as much as I used to. I talked about that earlier in the year on this channel, that I didn't want to have such an intense like TBR thing, but I think that I need to even step it back further and stop like writing my own list of my TBR, even if I don't publish it to you or to Instagram or anything like that, because I still want to have accountability with myself. And if I write down the list, or if I create my wrap up, you know, ahead of time and write down all the books that I think I'm gonna get to and I don't, it just becomes frustrating. So I would like to step down from doing that and sort of let myself read a little bit more of what is inspiring me at the time. And then of course, as usual, read more backlist books and read more things on my TBR. I did the TBR takedown series for quite a while this year, and I have been taking a break from it just so that I don't put myself into a reading slump. I feel like I really need to evaluate my shelves even closer and sort of see if everything that's on there is something that I am definitely excited to read. At this point, I feel like a lot of it is kind of dreaded, which sucks because I think there's a lot of good stuff on my shelves, and I think that if I come to it and approach it when I'm ready, I will feel like more excited about it. For example, I have had The Blue Fox on my shelves for a while, and I think if it had popped up in my TBR takedown, I wouldn't have been excited about it, but it is a book that I really want to read this December because it is a wintry, cold weather type of book, and I think it would be really fun and cozy to read in the winter. But this is what I mean, that like you kind of have to come to a book when you're excited about it, and there are backlist books here that I am interested in reading. I just feel like I need to approach them when I'm inspired to, rather than selecting them at random and feeling pressured. So the TBR takedown series, we're not sure whether we're going to continue that or in what capacity. So that's just a little update on the series, but my point still stands. I do think that I do want to continue trying to read backlist books and books that I already have, but I am not going to freeze my book buying officially because there are books that I'm excited to purchase and read, and I have been doing a lot of purchasing a new book and reading it immediately. I hate when I buy a new book, a brand new hardcover, and then it doesn't get read for 2 years. That is like the worst thing ever, because at that point you're like, I could have bought the paperback later. But those are some of my goals for 2026 as of right now. I'm still kind of refining them and trying to figure out what is achievable, but that is kind of the general vibe of what I'm going for next year. So that is the end of the year book tag. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit shorter, but I had a lot of fun talking about these prompts, and I think this is always a fun tag to kind of think about the rest of the year and sort of set intentions for it. Let me know what your answers to these questions would be. Specifically, what books are you most excited to read in the coming months, and what goals do you have for the rest of the year? If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.